The other thing that happens here is if you're trying to bulk, we have to talk about the other physical aspects of that with regard to, well, how do you elicit muscle growth? Well, now we need to talk about the stimulus that you're placing on the body outside of the caloric intake that you're putting in to support your goal. And this is, very known, right? This can be a little bit more generalized, I think, for people. We talk about nutrition being much more specific, obviously with numbers and types of foods and macronutrient profiles and things like that, based on where you are. The working out piece or the fitness side of this is a little bit easier to kind of wrap your head around because it's so much more known, I think, and commonly known. Conventional wisdom will say, yeah, well, I guess I need to lift weights. Yep. Yeah. You're going to need to lift weights.
Correct.
Right?
That's a big, square one. For sure.
Yeah, you're not going to be bulking by upping your running volume, right? That's not how this works. So we need to talk about like those kind of things and the nuances that may exist there. So first, we have to be providing a stimulus that encourages muscle growth.
Yeah.
So intensity, right? Volume. So intensity is how hard we're working, right? Volume, how much work we're doing. And then how do you balance that with the rest and then obviously the nutrition?
The frequency?
Yeah, exactly. With the frequency of that and how you're managing the volume through frequency and intensity through frequency for that matter. But then also supporting that through rest, recovery, and caloric and macronutrient intake because those two play hand in hand. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that this is a different part of the equation that needs to be managed very carefully. And there are some psychological things that come around here, I think, for people too, when we start talking about okay, what should I be doing with my workout program in order to elicit this response while I'm onboarding more calories? And sometimes that means working out less, right? And when I say less, I don't mean necessarily doing less. Well, that's not the right statement. When I say work out less, I mean, well, maybe if you're on a 6-day-a-week training program, right, you increase the intensity and decrease the frequency of how many times you're doing that, and maybe even the duration, so that you have more time in between to have that stimulus that you've given your body actually give you the effects and the results that you're looking for. Yeah. And that can be tough for people because you're like, so I've been working out 5-6 days a week. I work so hard to get here, going back to dude that's lean, right? And he's like, we may need to take a hard look at his workout program and go, instead of working out 5 days a week, we're going to put you on a 4-day-a-week program.
So you're telling me I should eat more and move less?
That's correct, right? So there's more than one way to get to a caloric surplus, right?
Yeah.
One of those obviously is to put more calories in. The other way is to have less expenditure.
Yep.
So, but there's ways to balance this, and you don't necessarily have to decrease your exercise frequency in order to get this, but then you would need to organize your workout programs in order, again, to elicit the result that you're looking for. So stimulus is important. You need to be lifting heavy enough, right, in order to affect the muscle growth. And so if you've been kind of in a routine that you really like, that maybe has a little bit more volume in it, a little bit more conditioning work or capacity work and things like that, we should probably be shifting to a little bit more strength work, maybe some power work. But let's look at when we're looking at building muscle, what should those workouts be driven more towards? And how much time would I be spending doing capacity work or endurance type work, even my power work in order to get there? Keeping this understanding that any of the work you do from a strength perspective is the foundation for all the other work that you do anyways.
Yeah.
Right? Like when we really look at it and we really break it all down, power and speed, capacity is simply an expression of the underlying strength that you have, right? And the muscle that you've built. So we have to keep the workouts focused to that. So it may mean for some people, they're trying to go through a bulk, really adjusting kind of what their workout programs look like. And this doesn't have to be complicated.
Well, I mean, even to backtrack slightly, kind of what we were talking about, you have to know where you're at. I think one of the first things that you should really think about is, are you actually on a strict program right now? Because I think there are a lot of exercisers, and we've talked about, it's okay to go through those little phases at points where they're kind of just doing the thing. They're just kind of working out.
Winging it. Yeah.
Winging it. So it's just the same thing with your nutrition.
Yeah,
if you're not
100%.
tracking what you're doing, like the basic principle, one of the basic principles is, progressive overload for building muscle, right? But if you don't know what you're currently doing and you're not tracking that,
how do you know?
How do you even know you're
changing your exercises?
Yes, exactly. Are you constantly changing what you're doing? You can't progressively overload or progressively overstimulus something if you're not hitting a consistent even movement or intention. You're changing your exercise, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's even like base one or square one. Like, are you actually like tracking what you're doing, and are you on a program that you can actually progressively overload? Like that should be the first thing you do. And then from there, like as far as changing the intention, even for me and for clients, and I think what a lot of people are doing, you're talking about when you get into summer, you're wanting to do these conditioning movement. Maybe we're doing more sports. Maybe we're outside more doing those things like that. But the changing of the intention with the programming of one, the foundation of that, yes, needs to now be strength training, which if you've always been like the kettlebell guy and you've always been doing these things where you're not focused on actually progressive strength training, that should be a big shift. And then I think this is where things that can work on more intention of setting yourself up to have more tension through specific muscles, more isolation work, things like that. This is where I've been, throwing in machine work, stuff like that. It can be really beneficial. So you can really control all these variables for the progression of this time. So
yeah, it's a good point when we start thinking about like, what are those movements? They're the basic ones we talk about a lot and that everybody kind of probably is really familiar with. It's squatting, hinging, pushing, pulling, both horizontally and vertically. Those are the things that you should be doing. And it doesn't, here's the other thing, like you mentioned, like work like kettlebell work or sandbag work, or, there's some other unconventional type exercises. And sometimes they get a little novel, with stuff that people are doing. They're fun, they're exciting, and there's value in them. But when it comes to bulking, when it comes to putting on muscle, nothing trumps a basic squat, a basic deadlift, a basic bench press, a basic row or pull down / pull up. Like you're just not going to find a better group of exercises for that. They're very basic movements, and you don't need to layer on all different variations of that movement. And that's the thing, again, psychologically, people need to get their head around. Like bulking is not sexy. Bulking, the hardest part about bulking is what we've already mentioned, which is actually doing the hard work, which is putting the food in your face, right? Planning for it, right? Planning for it, then putting it in your face and doing that consistently. It works the same on the exercise side. It's like, look, if you just picked 5 exercises to do, right? And you did those for the next 8 weeks and you track those and you work through a very organized progressive overload patterning for those things, same exercises, you're going to see a really great result. These are the knowns. This is what we know.
Well, man, I mean, I was pausing because I've been going to another gym a couple days a week to do some different work and things like that. Close from my, anyways, I've been going to more of a box public gym, and I just, I can't help but observe people, right? I can't help but
everybody does that,
right? And I'm watching all these people exercise, and I literally multiple times I'll see this, but there's this person who was on a piece of equipment and did 12 sets. Lackluster, lazy, barely intention, barely engaged sets. And I even made a post about, for a lot of people, we really think that these are basic principles, but there's so many people who just go and move around the gym. So we're talking about getting on a program. But a big thing with this is we've really ramping up in the intensity portion of it, the goal to gain strength. So instead of going and doing like 12 garbage sets on an exercise or 12 garbage exercises that you're not putting good effort into, really working of 2 to 3, 2 to 4 sets, but high effort, output, high intention is going to elicit a lot more strength gains and a lot more benefit from the bulk like we were just talking about. And that kind of ties into the like maybe doing less, maybe doing fewer movements, but having a lot more effort and intention in those movements is really going to be beneficial. And I think a lot of people actually don't really practice that. So